Yo, what's up, you lovely persons? Today we're going to be talking about Manhwas. Yay! Woo! Even though the last video took a lot out of me and made me want to stop reading them altogether. No, but you know what? I think this time is gonna be different. You see, in that video, I said that mangas are better than manhwas, and I still kinda think so, at least depending on the points that I made in that video. But after that, I've been reading a lot more manhwas, and I have to say that there are some pretty fire ones out there, and I do prefer the scheduling of them. Not to mention the coloring, then on average you get better art, better action, and most of all that I've noticed, and I think this might be my most controversial opinion so far, but Korean hentais are getting better. Yeah, I know, very blasphemous, I get it, but you gotta hear me out. I've still yet to make a video on Japanese doujins, so I can't speak much of them at the moment, but I will say that Korean pronhwas have stayed consistent while they're also slowly but surely getting rid of the flaws and the occasional bad ones that used to exist every now and again. I mean, I lived through an era where the most popular pronhwa was about a guy who got a harem of his stepmother's friends, see what I did there? Even though all of them were stars and the guy was a virgin. I'm sorry, but that doesn't make any sense. You're telling me that these experienced women who have collectively took on monsters and creatures with thousands of techniques are obsessed with this loser because he learned how to satisfy them by watching their videos thousands of times? Excuse me, sir. I'm not sure if that is how it works. Just because I've watched Mia Malkova for tens of years doesn't mean I can immediately learn how to subdue her or some shit. Meanwhile, said manhwas are also pumping out more and more genuinely good shit. I mean, a lot of my top 10s of all time now are some of the newer IPs. And you guys know that I'm not really the type to have recency bias. I just have them there because they are actually just much better than the shit that they used to pump out back in the day. Which brings me to the topic of this video. Last time, I told you guys about a modern manhwa that is downright god-awful and made me want to bash my skull. But this time, I'm here to tell you about a manhwa that I discovered that has the potential to be something special. A manhwa that, as much as some of you guys have some questionable taste, I would be really surprised if none of you guys became interested in this series. So why don't I just shut up and tell you the name of that said series called Somebody Stop Her. That's the title. And if anybody asks for the sauce in the comments, I'm going to find where you live. Meet our main character, Albert. He is short, like me, so I already feel a sense of camaraderie with him. But he's so short that people mistake him for a child, to the point that when he tried to buy alcohol, the lady at the counter asked for his ID, and he's like, "Bro, why?" And she's like, "Listen, minors aren't allowed to buy alcohol, so go get yourself touched by Diddy or something." And he's like, "Bro, I literally work. Look at my shirt, look at my company card, look at my exhausted ass face. Do you think that minors get this tired?" You do realize we're Koreans, right? Oh shit. So he goes back out empty-handed, pissed off that he couldn't get his beverage. Then he starts reminiscing about his hardships. We learn that he's 165 centimeters tall, which is still 11 centimeters taller than me, by the way, and that he also has a serious case of baby face. I mean, I don't know, this anime, everyone kinda looks like that. People go around calling him midget, people laugh at him doing physical exams, he sucks at basketball, which determines how attractive you are as a man in China. You know, everyday stuff for shorties. I've probably experienced like 80% of this. But the most painful thing was getting the NTR treatment because of his height. Wow. Height discrimination in the Big 25? That's crazy. Moving on, he came home to his own apartment and played some games, but while playing he gets distracted by his neighbor's cigarette smoke, something that has been a daily occurrence to him. Already in a bad mood, he decides to confront the smoker by being polite and asking them to stop. But before he could even knock on the door, fucking Ken Masters over here gets thrown out and got the Yamcha special. So, he decides to go back home. Fantastic choice, that is amazing. But then he gathered up the courage and tries again the next day. He came with gifts to talk, but the smoker immediately took the gift without bringing him in. The next day, he filed a complaint. The next day after that, he waited for the smoker to come out, but to no avail, he failed in all of them. And alas, it's gotten so bad that he could barely rest or sleep at home. So after a week, he just thought, fuck it, I have nothing else to lose, and actually rang the bell until the smoker opens up. To which they finally did. But to his surprise, the smoker is a giant purple-haired, big-titty musclehead. Yeah, don't worry, buddy. I too would be stuttering if I saw an Amazonian goddess. Now at this point, I'm ready for the main character to do the most basic shit and give up his objective. But to my surprise, he actually went through with it and asked her to stop smoking, which is actually kind of unique if you think about it. But also to my surprise, She said no. No? What do you mean no?
I don't wanna stop smoking.
But the smoke comes into my room and... What the fuck?
There, I smoked. What are you gonna do about it? Oh, you didn't like that? Then try to stop me. You so short and skinny. You look like a kid.
And that triggered something in him. Flashback no jutsu comes in. All of his memories are now flooding out. Scenes of people laughing, saying, "Isn't it nice having a midget in the office?" Which... What? How is that an insult? And why is that so funny? I don't get it. Anyways, NTR memory unlocked. He gets pissed off and brings school shooter vibes. Actually snatched her cigarette away, gets her kind of concerned, the same person who beat up a Street Fighter character by the way, and then gives her a kabedon. Holy shit. This guy is awesome. And it was only until her towel fell off that he got flustered and ran away, but not without getting his point across and also actually rizzed her up. Yo! This shit is good! Now if you're already interested in his manhwa at this point, then you can go ahead and read it, but there are still quite a few things to talk about that I want to talk about. Turns out our smoker, who we will call Care Bear, was actually known to be a pretty huge savage back in the day. And also turns out our Care Bear is actually a freeloader and has 2 other roommates with her. Roommates who are also her besties. One is a dumbass mouse who likes to eat things, and the other, a sly and teasing fox who got interested in our main character for being able to rizz up her precious gorilla, which then led to all of them being acquainted with our main character and hang around with him all the time. And so the manhwa continues as our short king goes along with these girls' shenanigans. Will he stay sane and fend them off, or will he fall victim but at the same time also end up rizzing and having his own little romance with them? Find out by yourself by reading the tags. Because the video is actually kind of obvious. Okay, let's go and establish the characters real quick. We've already seen our short king in action, so we don't really need much to explain about, except for the fact that he stays slaying. So we'll go ahead and talk about the girls. Care Bear is pretty obviously our main girl. She's a brute force of nature, a huge tsundere to our main character, and also struggles with her own looks just like how our short king goes through the same. Her roommate and bestie, who we will call Nagathoro but thick, is a huge teaser who is pretty popular with her charms. Apart from Care Bear, she also gets a lot of screen time. Screen time that is a big discussion in the fanbase, but I'll talk about that later. Now we have this girl named Lin, who is a dumbass. That's pretty much it. And then we have the newest girl who just got introduced 10 chapters ago by the time this is recording, and she is... perfect. I've been really trying. Anyways, and the thing about all of these girls are that they are not good people. Care Bear still constantly calls him a kid, even though she's being a big old tsundere when doing it, but we also have Nagathiko who always wraps around him to test his sanity. Every one of these girls have grinded our main character's gears at least thrice. They constantly torment the poor guy and they just can't help themselves from doing it. For example, I'm gonna tell you about a scene where we get introduced to Discount Ubel after tens of chapters of build-up. Our main character is tired and exhausted after a long day of really hard work. And I mean, really hard work. And he comes home to a nice big line of smoke. He gets pissed off because it's coming from Care Bear's house. They've already made a deal to not do this shit anymore, so seeing the gray lines after plenty of chapters is starting to make him crash the fuck out. He bangs on the door, but to his surprise, he doesn't find Care Bear, but instead, a new girl who is... perfect. Anyways, hey man, can you like... not smoke, please? And she's like, no. What are you gonna do about it, pussy? Did you just call me? Yeah. Go fuck yourself. I am not making this shit up. Why would you do that? Like why? There was no need for that. These are the worst type of people you can have as neighbors. The idea of, oh, but it's my house, I can do whatever I want. Yes. But it's also not that hard to make some compromises. What is so hard about smoking outside? Like, have you ever thought about that? Do it in the balcony or something, or better yet, just open the fucking window. It's not rocket science to be nice. Why is it so hard to understand? These women are annoying. In any other world, aka real life, we can start a hate campaign over all of them. These are the type of people that you avoid. These are the type of people that you bully online for being stupid, like the people in charge of the Whatever podcast.
I guess you could make the case that, like, Grape is bad for certain people.
No.
For certain people.
No, it's bad for everyone.
No, it's only bad for certain people. Here,
Andrew.
like there's women, you agree, who have orgasmed during SA.
That has nothing to do with
Bro.
I take that back. That was a little too far. But now I can already tell what you guys are thinking. Why would I read this? Kiwi, you've already told me about an awful manhwa where all of the characters are terrible and how it's a waste of time to read these types of manhwas because of how bad they are. What makes this manhwa any different to the one that you specifically told us to avoid reading? Why would we even bother checking this out? Well, I'll tell you this. I hate everybody in that manhwa. There are almost no redeeming qualities and the writing makes me want to puke in a shoe. But while everybody in this manhwa is annoying as well, I love them. And that is because of the writing. One of the most popular tropes in romances that I personally like quite a lot is the enemies to lovers plot. So many people like this shit, and for pretty good reasons. If you search on Google about why it's so loved, you see answers like, it gives us that feeling of safety. We know that no matter the differences that the characters share, they will come to an understanding and a compromise at the end of the day. We know that even in the face of conflict, good endings can still prevail. Yeah, no, I don't really give a shit about that. I want to see two people who fucking hate each other hate fucking each other. That shit is my kryptonite. I don't care if it's toxic as shit, that shit brings a primal reaction inside of me. It makes shit interesting, it makes shit spicy, and as a guy coming from the land of spice called Indonesia, this fits me greatly. Like one of my favorite shows ever, Game of Thrones, we don't talk about that final season, has plenty of examples of this trope, and although it's not the only reason I like it, it did make up for a lot.
I told you.
Oh my god. Can we show this on TV? And this is why I mentioned this, because this manhwa is filled with this genre, and that's why these characters work. Not one girl in here is a nice and decent human being, and that is perfect. Because we also have a main character that really doesn't take shit from anyone and actually does something to people who do him wrong. I'm looking at you. It makes these action scenes that much more entertaining because we get to see these people just bicker and banter every time they do anything remotely positive. Compare that to how if we get a basic self-insert main character. We would not be getting these types of moments because he'd be too pussy to pull them off. We get plenty of action scenes with this giant purple-haired big titty musclehead, and a lot of times her sheer strength and savagery, to no surprise, manages to pin him down on multiple occasions. Even with Nagatheko, he would get moments where he feels himself in trouble. But what's crazy is when that 5'4" femboy coated Shota looking dude manages to get them to think,
I'm in danger!
like that is awesome. We need less of that and more of this, please. I feel like that would benefit everyone. Hey guys, look, it's Sung Jin Woo, but better. Alright, I'm kidding. But no, he actually is though. Now I'm gonna talk about something that I've been wanting to talk about ever since I made this video. Because as much as I like this manhwa, there are a few problems that I do need to address. But to talk about those said problems, I do need to talk about something that I do like. You see, I read this in a site where the fan base is very vocal in the comment section. And while reading, I've come to realize that people really worship this Amazonian warrior, but absolutely despise our orange-haired discount Nagatoro. And I hate to say it because I'm putting myself in a position where people can start bullying me over it, but I really like Lena. I don't care. She's fine. In fact, I'd even argue her romance with the main character is just as entertaining with the main girl. When I was first reading this, I thought that she was a fun addition to the series, where we get some breaks from giant woman who can kill you to the girly pop who constantly teases you more than Uzaki-chan did in her prime. And maybe it's just my taste, but I was shocked when I read the comments and saw constant hate towards this girl. Even when she was being logical, a good friend, having her cute moments, a sad backstory where she literally goes through depression and bullying, the comments were still ruthless. These people do not give a fuck. And I mean, I get it, first girl syndrome, but how are you gonna get mad at a love triangle when the tag literally says harem? Like you're setting yourself up for failure. So maybe it's just this website that has a problem of being a home to retarded people, but I'm curious about you guys. Do you guys like her? Do you guys not like her? If so, why? Like, let me know. Because I, for the life of me, can't figure out if it's just a me thing. Because either way, if you read this manhwa, you can't really deny that she's a good character. I expected her to just be the typical love rival that's bold and easily charming, but the author did a twist on her that I generally didn't see coming. It's an interesting way of making it interesting, and as far as I can see it, this is a pretty unique way of inputting a certain character trope and making her into your own. It makes her more special. Also, she's pretty hot, which brings me to my complaint, because if there's one thing I do not like about her, is that she gets the worst arc in this series, which is a very bad look because that's where you get to like her the most. It's so weird because it started out good, then pretty good, but then the author gave her the quote-unquote action scene for 7 chapters. 7. Why do we need 7 chapters? Are we reviewing the history of China? And you'll see this in a lot of the manhwa, but during said action scenes, you realize that they just go for way too long. And I'm not talking about Regress Warriors Female Dominance Diary chapter 44 to 52 type of long. If you know, you know. But you read them and you're like, why are they talking so much? Like, I get the charm of this manhwa is their constant bickering and banter with each other, but it gets to the point where it's just too much. Why can't you guys go a minute without having to talk shit in the middle of the act? Like, girl, be so for real, you are wasting my time. We already had the bantering in the date. That's kind of the whole point. If you want to have some dialogues in your action, that's fine, but don't let that overshadow the action. And again, this doesn't just apply to Nagathiko, but it happens in pretty much every action scene in this manhwa. She just had 2 chapters extra. So if you ask me, yes, it's annoying, but also, she's really not that different from our main girl. Yes, she has the worst arc, and it did get to a point where I wanted the author to move the fuck on and change the girl already, but don't act like any of it is her fault, when Care Bear is literally the same. So I don't get how these people can like Care Bear, but then hate Nagathiko at the same time. Like, they're both insufferable assholes. Regardless, this is one of my favorite manhwas to read right now. I like the short gang representation, and I would be lying if I didn't say I have a bias towards smug and cocky characters. Like, I'm sorry. Maybe she is annoying, but I just don't see it. Either way, it's one of the nicer manhwas in an already sorta niche category that is slowly getting more and more saturated. A lot of these types of manhwas nowadays are starting to feel a bit boring with how samey they are. They all follow a specific formula to play safe with an audience that have been conditioned to enjoy something brain dead. More on that in another video. But this manhwa is simply just built different. It does things that you didn't know would work. And with the current chapter going into a new arc with the new girl, Ubel, I am pretty excited to see how the story goes. So I'm gonna go ahead and give this manhwa a pretty solid 8.5 out of 10. Alright y'all, that's all I gotta say. Don't be expecting any manhwa videos soon, but do expect that they will come, because they do be coming. Also, if you're interested in the uncensored version of this video, because this video do be pretty censored, the link to my Patreon is available down below. So make sure to check that out if you want to check that out. Anyways, yeah. That's all I have to say. This has been your boy. And I'm going to bang your mom.